All right, so history is inquiry into the past. So questioning the past. It's a guide for the present, so kind of like a roadmap to the present, insight into the future, so we can make observations and inferences and say, hey, this is how it worked out in the past, how can we better know the future? Okay? Interpretations of history, this is important, right? Because not all people say history, this is how history should be, this is how history should be, right? So people look at it in a very different manner. So letter A is cyclical, like a cycle. Think of an endless cycle, a loop, right? That just repeats itself. And so one of the major religions that we think about is Hinduism, as they believe in reincarnation and in the cycle of rebirth. However you lived your previous life, if it was honorable enough, you may move up into a different caste. If not, you could possibly be relegated to a different life. But it's cyclical. There's an endless cycle. Progressive. And I'm not talking about the soup. Or is that progressive?
Yeah, that's
Progressive.
is insurance company.
Oh, progressive. Okay, I'm not talking about insurance. Thank you. Society always improves over time. And so we think about other people that viewed society and history as that way, and we make the connection to Darwin. Darwin says, hey, only the strong will survive. The survival of the fittest type idea. And society progresses forward. And how is that true? How has society progressed forward from its past? What are some examples? Raise your hand. Laura.
We have TV.
We have TV. We can entertain ourselves. Instead of having you guys read everything out of a book, I can simplify some information for you and put it up here on the screen. Yes?
We have Donkey Kong.
We have video games. Donkey Kong, right? Is it always true? Has, in times past, has our society as a whole always progressed towards improvement? Will?
Usually.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, we got, does anyone want to challenge him? Anyone want to challenge that idea? Logan?
Challenge Will. That's a great mistake.
Hey, we talked about the Great Depression, right? That's a step backwards. People have, like, 25% of the United States were jobless. Hey, think about to the Dark Ages. What was going on in the Dark Ages?
Darkness.
Not much, right? What had to happen after the Dark Ages, right? What came after the Dark Ages? Yeah. The Renaissance. So there was a time period where people really weren't doing anything new. They really digressed. When we think about the Greeks and the Romans, they went backwards in time and didn't go forward and progress. And so maybe history is not always forward, right? Maybe in some ways we are not improving, right? Maybe we can judge Hitler killing millions of Jews and then look at our own society and be like, we're not like Hitler in that time. And then we realize that we allow abortions to happen. Is that really improving society? Right? Distinctive. Is history distinctive? And to a degree, we would have to say yes, right? Can you imagine yourself living in the 1800s on the Wild Wild West? And maybe some of you is like, I would definitely enjoy that way better than COVID-19. Right? It's unique because of the time that they live in. Right? But is it always unrelatable? I mean, yes, it may be difficult to understand how people lived back then because we just don't know it. But some struggles, right? Maybe they have troubles making friends. Like Lucas here,
Oh.
right? Maybe they,
Go on.
right, have other drama. Right? Maybe their best friend stabbed them in the back. Don't know. Hopefully not, really. Other interpretations of history. Karl Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto, believed that there was this eternal struggle between the rich and poor. And he wanted to break down those lines in the vision and say, hey, everyone should be on an equal playing field. Right, let's just get rid of money as we really know it, and everyone can kind of be a part of this new idea. Okay? Or you can have a Judeo-Christian value of history, and we see that there is an intention and there is a purpose behind history, and that God formed the world, so there's purpose in that because God is personally involved in it, that God intervened. He moves to an end times, and so history has a beginning, history has an end. Okay? And we see, how have we seen God intervene throughout history? How have we seen it? Anyone?
Tower of Babel.
Usually if you're in Sunday school, this is like the answer 90% of the time. Jesus, right? Jesus intervened.
Tower
He
of
came.
Babel.
Well, yes, Tower of Babel, right? I mean, there's other examples, but when you talk about a true intervention, Jesus literally came to the world. God came to the world. Or you can have a scientific view of history, right? It's just kind of randomly happened. It was an accident,
Sadness.
right? There's no real meaning. No meaning to life. Okay. So that basic question, right? Origin. Why am I here? Right, we think of some of the great origin stories. Maybe you're a Marvel fan and you like Spider-Man's origin story. Maybe you're like me and my wife and have been watching The Umbrella Academy and you're like, well, that is a weird origin story, but I like it. Right? And so you have people that are trying to find meaning in life. They're trying to find purpose. They're trying to weigh the values of what is right and what is wrong. In the Judeo-Christian value, we would say that God is the one telling us what's right and what's wrong. And then the question of destiny, what happens when we die? Atheist is like, there's no real answer to that. Right? On the other hand, we know it from a Christian view is that life on earth may end, yes, but eternal life with Jesus. Life is good, eternal life is better. Anyone ever sing that song at camp? No, that's your favorite song on repeat, Spotify. All right, so how do we uncover history? Well, we look to different sources. We look at the artifacts, so the actual things that were there during that time period. We look at written documents. We look at eyewitness accounts, and I made this reference to my other classes. 30 years from now, if you guys start having kids and a family, and you somehow still send them to Cornerstone School, and they come home and they're like, this weird professor I had in U.S. history, Mr. Mann, just told me to write a paper about COVID-19. And guess what? You guys are eyewitnesses to this time, and you have to help them, so you're never getting away from my homework. You thought you were done with my homework. 30 years from now, I'm going to assign homework to someone that you know, and you're going to have to still do homework. Right? So, right, you were there in person, you saw it, you recorded it. Right? Elijah has his diary that he's just writing about COVID-19. Right? And he talks about it. You have different people's opinions. Or you can have a secondary source, right? You can have someone that's really astute and gathers all of our classroom diaries about COVID-19 and then make a book about COVID-19 at Cornerstone Christian.
How many classroom diaries do you have?
I mean, I know you have 2, so 3 at least.
At least.
At least 3.
Well, what about yours?
All right, so other things, right? Is a secondary source reliable? It can be reliable. Real quick, is the Gospels, are the Gospels Are they primary or secondary sources?
Primary.
Raise your hand if you think the Gospels are a primary source. Primary source. Okay? Raise your hand if you think it's a secondary source. Raise your hand if you think it's both. Raise your hand if you just don't know. All right, we got some honest people. It's a little bit of both, right? So when you think of the Gospels, who wrote the Gospels?
The disciples.
Disciples. So who did they write about? They wrote about Jesus, and they were there with Jesus. Were they there with him when he was born?
No.
So do you think they had